So I'm going to look at some principles before we go in detail. So this is interesting to know. Each metal further down the body is further in world history. Well, we know that, don't we? It's a linear timeline. But number two, each part of the statue from head to feet is less flexible. The metal is less flexible, more base, and more abundant. Those three things, okay. It's more flexible, the metal. It's more base, not as valuable, that means, and more in abundance, and therefore cheaper. If it's more in, things that are in abundance are cheaper. You know, clay's the dust of the earth. Silver's not as expensive as gold. So it's going down in quality, but greater in quantity. All right? Lesser in quality, greater in quantity. And each one is less flexible. So you've got gold, silver, brass, iron, clay. Let's look at them. Gold. Did you know this quality of gold? Amazingly malleable gold. It's not a hard metal. Did you know that? Did you know, have you got a gold ring? It won't be pure gold. Why not? It's too soft. You flatten it. Gold's very malleable, and so they mix it with different things, with copper or lesser impurities. They put impurities in gold so it's more solid, okay, but pure gold is very malleable. Unbelievable, it can be beaten out to surprising lengths. It's also rare, which makes it valuable, okay. Listen to this, a small gold nugget, 5 millimetres. That's not much, is it? Quarter of an inch. There's an extra aspect for you. Quarter of an inch in diameter, right? So that's very small, isn't it? Quarter of an inch. Can be expanded 20,000 times its initial surface through hammering. Gold foil. Producing gold foil. Listen, the surface of about 1 square metre with a thickness of 0.2 to 0.3 micrometres. That's 1/millionth of a metre. It can be beaten out. So something quarter of an inch square, little quarter of an inch square of gold, if it's beaten out, it can be beaten and beaten, and it'll expand and expand, and it won't break, and it won't break. It's so soft. To be half a square metre. A metre's 3 foot from quarter of an inch. That's how much gold is flexible, malleable. Why did God choose gold? Do you think it's by chance he said, you're gold? It can be beaten and beaten and beaten, and what happens when it's beaten? It gets bigger. The more Babylon's battered, the bigger it gets, and the more flexible. Can you see? It's a perfect example that you would never smash Babylon. Until God smashes it, all the smashing will make it bigger. Every time you hammer Babylon, it gets bigger. It can spread over the whole of... So there's so much we could go into with each metal. I haven't time. But just to let you know that God's mind is unbelievably intricate. Just to think that God says you gold. We think, oh, it's gold, it's precious. But it's the qualities of it. That the more you batter it, the bigger it goes, the bigger surface area. I mean, 1/millionth. It's unbelievable. 1 million thick. It can be beaten to. Unbelievable. All right, gold. All right, silver is not so rare. So it's lesser value. It's not as flexible as gold, is it? You couldn't beat silver out like that. It's less flexible. But there's more of it. There's more silver than there is gold, so it'll be a bigger kingdom. Can you see? Gold's rarest of these metals. It's the smallest. Babylon gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I'll show you the maps of where it expanded. Okay. The next one is brass. Now, brass isn't even a metal that's mined. Brass is an alloy. Do you know what an alloy is? It's two metals mixed together, or three. So if it's an alloy, it's not pure. Gold is not an alloy. All right. Brass is an alloy because it's a mixture of copper and zinc, or copper and tin. And it's also called bronze. The distinction's historical. Bronze is brass. Okay, it's just they used to call it bronze. It's less pure metal. It's not as malleable. Brass is quite brittle compared with gold. Okay. Isn't it amazing how it's getting more brittle, less flexible as it goes on, less in value, greater in quantity. It's more abundant, so indicating a larger empire than gold or silver. Still the statue of Babylon, but it's expanding. You know, the head's not the biggest part of the body, is it? It rules. It's the most powerful, but it's not the biggest part of your body. Your chest is bigger. Your legs are massive, aren't they? The last ones are the legs are longer. The legs are almost half of your body. It's unbelievable when you go into it how much you can get out of this. You do your own studies. This is just my little 2 penn'orth. Brass, iron. Did you know iron's the most common metal in the world? I didn't know some of these things. Did you know it's soft when it's mined? Impurities are added to it to make it brittle. They add impurities to make it brittle. And it's very brittle. Have you ever had cast iron? Hit cast iron, it shatters. It's so brittle, if you hit it with a hammer, it will shatter. Hit gold, it'll get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Did you know that the greatest part of the earth is iron? Did you know that? I didn't know that. The greatest metal forming earth as a whole, forming much of Earth's outer and inner core. I didn't know that, did you? Most of the Earth's outer and inner core is iron. More abundant than all the other metals, indicating a still larger empire which will cover the earth. The Iron Rome has covered the whole earth. All Christendom, all Islam, they're all branches of it. Rome went east and west, you know. Okay. Clay. Because as clay comes in, it's not on its own, it's mingled with the iron at the end, okay, and it's not a metal. So the metal's the one that matters, but there's clay mixed with it, okay. Well, clay's the basest of all. It's not even a metal, and it's the last part and the largest part. Clay is the dust of the earth. There's more dust and clay on the planet than any metal, isn't there? Don't you think it's amazing? It gets to clay and is more abundant. It's worthless. That's you, you're worthless. Absolutely worthless, you're just dust. Know yourself, we're dust. Don't we think much of ourselves? We put ties on and shirts and earrings and makeup and we look in the mirror as though we're something. We're just dust dressed up. In fact, if God didn't put a spirit in you, you'd just be dust again. I buried a man this week at a funeral service. He's gone back to dust, that's all he was. He was a proud, arrogant man actually, but he's been humbled. He's been humbled. He's going to be dust. The worms will eat him and he'll be back to dust of the earth. Amazing, isn't it? You go back to where life originated from. Back to dust. All right. As with any body, the head rules. So, if that's true, if it's the same body, if Rome is still the body of Babylon, then the head's still ruling. Babylon's still ruling the Greeks, the Romans. It's still ruling. And if we're still under Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, that spirit is still ruling. The principles are the same as it proceeds through history, okay? So on the surface, we may see different faces, different races, but they're only masks. Behind, there's identical motives, identical plans. So it's only a mask. Behind every empire since Babylon, nothing has changed. The British Empire reflects Babylon. The Roman Empire reflected Babylon. Every empire on the planet reflects Babylon because they have given to you every nation, every king, the kingdom, the power and glory, and all men will serve Babylon till the end. We've proved that. So a different mask, it's the same person. To not know and understand the principle of Babel, it puts you in danger of being part of it. Because you say, that's not Babylon, it looks different. That doesn't look like Babylon. No, it's got a different mask on. Be careful. Be careful. Christianity is Babylon with another mask on. Behind it, with the bells and the smells and the cloaks and all the regalia and most of the doctrines are Babylon. And we don't know. But it's called Christianity. Yeah, it's another name for Babylon. The religion, Christianity. I'm not talking about disciples of Jesus. I'm talking about the religion. Islam is another mask of Babylon. Buddhism is another mask of Babylon. All religion is part of Babylon. So we need to know. Listen, the two seeds, exactly. What you see in Christ, you see in Satan, they're exactly the same. Because he's anti, meaning in place of, trying to impose. Satan is not the opposite of God. He wants to be the same. So the tactics and the principles will be the same. The head still controlling Babylon, as sure as Christ is ruling his church, the true bride of Christ. Who's ruling the church? Archbishop of Canterbury, God forbid. The Pope, God forbid. The Archbishop of Canterbury is head of the English Babylon. The Pope is the head of international Babylon. Who's the head of the bride? Christ. So as sure as the head is controlling Babylon, Christ is controlling his own body, his church. Be part of the body. Get your right head. The head isn't Christianity, it's not Islam. The head is Christ. He is the head. There's no other head. We don't come under the Archbishop of Canterbury. We don't come under the Pope. We don't come under Muhammad. We don't come under religion. Religion is Babylon. We come under Christ. Jesus was anti-religious, a-religious. He criticised the religion of the day, God's people. He said, you've become religious. You've got the traditions of the elders. That's religion. Tradition of the elders is religion. Jesus spoke against it vehemently. We're new creatures. We're independent of any system, worldly or religious. We're independent. We have a personal relationship with the head. Right? Not through another mediator. The Archbishop is a mediator. The Pope is a mediator. Is that right? Assemblies of God is a mediation. Elim is we shouldn't have denominations. The mediation, and we don't have it, it's Christ. That doesn't mean you don't come under an elder or a deacon. We know the order. I'm talking about the religion. Okay. So, here's another little point. Point 4. Metals deteriorating quality. All right. Starts as gold, ends up in clay. Did you know that's exactly the opposite of the alchemical process? You've heard of alchemy, haven't you? Yeah. What's alchemy? Well, you probably don't know, only what they tell you. They tell you, oh, it's turned base metals into gold. That's what they say. It's spiritual. It's to turn men into gods. That's what it's about. That's what alchemy is about. It's not turning base metals into gold. That's the symbolism to make men into gods. Turn base metals into gold. A spiritual mystery behind alchemy. It's the principle of Babylon. I shared it in Conference 1. Maybe you forgot about alchemy. That the devil wants to turn us into gods. He wants to mix our seed with angelic seed. He wants to change our DNA so we become post-human. Men who are clay. He wants us to make us gods. The devil wants to make us gods. You'll be like God. That was what he said. You'll be like God. You're dust. God made us to die. Adam would have died without the tree of life. As soon as he took the tree of life away, he died. God didn't put something on him to make him die. He didn't change his DNA or whatever. He just stopped him eating the tree of life. Well, the tree of life must have fed something to keep him living. So the devil's idea is to keep us living forever in our sinful state without redemption. So he can control the planet and live forever. That's the lie of your serpent. You won't die. I'll find a way to make you live forever. Trust me. Trust me. And with our understanding of DNA at the present time, it must be pretty close to it. Because now they can take some DNA of an eagle that can see further than you can and put it in you, and you'll be able to see further. They're finding ways. Did you read that DVD I was sharing about with Kurzweil? Transcendent man. How he believes that they can make man live forever. The devil's pretty close to it. Don't think it's a pipe dream. Going to the moon was a pipe dream at one time, and it happened. All the science fiction has come to pass. It's now science fact. When I was a kid, all the science fiction is now science fact. And the fact of all these alien films and all that, they're only prophesying what's going to happen in the last days. Because Satan's going to be cast out of heaven with his angels, and they're going to come down to earth. Woe to the earth! We'll get some mingling then, I'll tell you. All right, that's for the next conference. So let's carry on. We've just had the Olympics, so let me bring the Olympics. Do you know what the Olympics is about? Going for gold. Isn't it funny? The eternal flame. Do you not know it's absolutely occult? It's based on occult principles. They all ran naked. Did you know that? Women weren't allowed in the early Olympics because they ran naked. It's about body beautiful, and it's about men becoming gods. Because it's Greek. You know, the gods come down and mate with women and body beautiful. That's what they say. Go for gold. Get worshipped as a god. Get the medal. Get the gold. Go for gold. And if you saw the opening and closing ceremony for the Paralympics, it's full of occult symbols, full of it. Even the speeches were witchcraft speeches. It was poems that were, it's coded witchcraft if you know anything about it. All right. So, in the empires that follow, Nebuchadnezzar, we can see that they exceed each other in size because the metals get more abundant. And each one extends more to the west. I'll show you the maps. Go west. Because God put Eden in the east. Eden was in the east, wasn't it? And men have been going west ever since. And we're nearly circumnavigated the world now. You know, India and China are getting westernized. We're not getting Chinese eyes, do we? We're not playing the rock. We're not playing the scales of I used to teach jazz, and you know, I knew the Japanese scales and different scales. But they're playing rock music in Beijing. We're not playing Chinese music. We're not playing other scales, are we? They're having Western fashion in China. We're not having the Chinese. When I go to Africa, they're all wearing English fashion. We're not wearing Punjabi suits, are we, like in India, and saris? Go to India, they're wearing our Western dress. The whole world, even the East, is getting Westernized. Do you understand? The West is Babylon. When you think of West, think of Babylon. The whole world's getting westernized. The developed world, we're developing Babylon. Next time you say about the developed world, the underdeveloped world, that means it's not been Babylonianized yet. Okay, let me say that again so you're thinking. When they say about the undeveloped world, what they're saying, it's not developed, it's not been Babylonized yet. We've not given it the culture of Babylon. We've not given it the religion, the ethos, the greed, the selfishness, the principles of Babylon. They're still primitive. They need to come into the West. The net needs to be worldwide. So that's what that's why we're trying to develop countries. That's why the missionaries went, to make them Christian. There were some sincere men. I know lots of good missionaries. But the church wanted to conquer lands for Rome, or the Church of England. So they exceed in size, and each one extends more to the west. Now, I can't go into it, but the statue has a parallel in Daniel 7, because then instead of seeing a statue, he saw beasts, a lion, a bear, etc. So what I'm going to do, with each empire, I'll show you the animal, and you'll have to do your own studies. I can't go into it, all right. So, let's go back again. So, he saw a beast for each empire, and there was much more detail about the fourth kingdom, the one we're in now. What we're looking at, there's not a lot of detail, but when you look at chapter 7, there's a lot more detail about the last kingdom, all right? So study it for yourself in the light of what we're looking at. Okay, Jay. So, Babylon was gold, golden Babylon, and it was a lion. Okay. So the lion still rules. It's the counter to the Lion of Judah. Isn't it funny that Babylon's the lion and Jesus is the lion? The Antichrist is a lion. That's the symbol of the Antichrist, a lion. The symbol of Christ is a lion. And very interesting, isn't it? What's the symbol of the British Empire? Is it not a lion? Interesting. I wonder why we've chose a lion. Think about it. Why is Russia the bear? Think about these things. You know, they're not by chance. The nations, all right. So, Daniel 7, the first was like a lion, had eagle's wings. All right. So that empire extended to the western coast of Israel. Have we got a map of that? I've put the maps in the book. All right. So that was Babylon. So that was a massive empire, you know, in the world. Don't forget, all North and South America didn't exist as we knew. I mean, it was there, but nobody knew. And Australia, where was that? Till Cook went and discovered it. I mean, it wasn't lost, but he discovered it. And, you know, we only heard rumours about Kathmandu and China and India, and rare people had been. We knew nothing about those things, even 200 years ago in England. So that was Babylon, all right. So can you see where it started? It's gone quite a lot west, hasn't it, from Ur of the Chaldees, if you can spot it. But anyway, that's Babylon. Okay. Right, the silver. This was Media Persia, a bear. So find out what country calls themselves a bear these days. Another beast, like a bear, raised itself up, all right. So that's a bear. Next one. And that was the Medes and the Persians. Now, I don't know if you'll remember the last map, but can you see it's gone into North Africa now? Do you know your atlas? So some will know it better than others. But it's gone further west because it's now in North Africa. So that wasn't on the last map. So slowly, the Persian Empire is going a little bit further west. Okay. Right, we're up to the brass of Greece. A leopard. What nation's that now? A leopard, anyway. Okay, and where did that go to, Joni? Can you see? A lot further now. And can you see how it's gone into sort of Macedonia and Greece and Italy? And can you see it's gone further west? And Alexander the Greek. I've got a quote from a historian. Born in 356 before Christ, so it's, 200 years after Nebuchadnezzar. Alexander the Great led his armies. An amazing man. Died at 30 and conquered the world. Conquering new territories for the body of Babylon. Don't forget, it wasn't for Greece, it's part of the statue. So he's pushing the statue. It starts in the head, and the Medes and the Persians are growing the statue. Don't forget, he was a head, he had no body. Nebuchadnezzar had no body, just a head. So the Medes and the Persians put shoulders on Babylon. And Alexander the Great grew the body and put thighs on Babylon. The seed comes from the thighs, a very important part of the body. It's where the seed comes from. The heart's in this part, the head's in that part. Think about it. Nebuchadnezzar had the head. The Medes and Persians had the heart. The loins, where the seed comes from, Greek. Oh, there's so much Greek philosophy, architecture, everything. I'm going to look at it in our civilization now in Britain. Because that's the seed. All right, so very interesting. Where's the what? The Masonic apron. The Masonic apron, they put it over the seed. Masons is about sex, if you don't know. At the top, it's about sex. The obelisk that they put on the gravestone of a man, it's a phallus. That's an erect penis, if you don't know. But it's all about sex, I have to say. It's about mingling. The Star of David is about sex. The two triangles coming down together to become one. Sons of God, daughters of men, Star of David. Two triangles, one going up, one going down. One's the male, one's the female. All right? And if they form the Star of David. It's all about the mingling of the seed. When I say sex, I'm not talking about that. It's the mingling of the seeds, the sons of God, the angels coming down and mating with men. This is what the devil's on about, the seed. We don't get it preached because people don't like it, but this seed is going through humanity from Eve. She started it right through to the end. And Armageddon is the battle of the seeds. Who will sit on the throne and rule the nations with a rod of iron? They'll both rule the nations with a rod of iron. Who'll win? Well, we know, don't we? But we need to understand. So he conquered the territories for the body of Babylon, and it extended to Turkey and Macedonia. We'll look in a minute, a bit further west. In the year 331 BC, one of the greatest intellects, whenever anyone's an intellect, think Babylon. Intellect comes from Babylon. Science is magic, comes from Babylon. All right, anything to do, academia, Babylon. The simplicity that we see in Christ, is it the opposite? Is there many wise in this world, many intellects, many? Very, very few. It's about the simplicity, because whenever you get complexity, you know, philosophy, everything's grey. Well, it could be this and it could be that, and putting different sides. That's all a mingling, the mixing. We have no philosophy, do we? Vain philosophy. Endless genealogy. We have the simplicity, because can you see, diametrically opposed. We're intelligent, I hope. I'm talking about that intellectual superiority, knowledge for knowledge's sake. It's Babylon. Wanting to know. You don't need to know anything except Christ. I want to know Christ and him only. You don't need anything else. The diametrically opposed, education and all those things. Be very careful, it's part of Babylon. So one of the greatest intellects, and these are not my words, this is what somebody said, but it reveals to me, whose influence the world has ever felt, that's a bold statement, with his eagle glance, the unrivaled advantage of a spot which is now Alexandria, named after him, Alexandria. It's now called, what's it called now? Did it change to Constantinople, was it? No, that's Byzantium. It's not called Alexandria. Cairo, is it? Forgive me anyway, we'll take that off the tape. I'm ignorant enough without showing it on tape. So, you knew long ago, didn't you? Which is now Alexandria, and conceivably conceived the mighty project of making it the point of union of two, or rather three worlds. In a new city named after himself, Europe, Asia and Africa were to meet to hold communion. He's gathered those three. Can you see what Alexander did? Very interesting. That's a historian, but we can read into it, can't we? Never read what's written. Don't read what's written, read what's behind what's written. Do you understand? Never take anything on face value. Don't take me on face value. Find the real Maurice. I don't want to take you on face value. I want to know the real you. So Iron Rome, that Celeste Empire, and this was a different beast than all the rest, a terrible, different beast with iron teeth. And it tells you a lot about it. I can't go into it. But this last one of Rome is still standing now. The Roman Empire never finished. It didn't disappear and come back with the European Union. It never left. The Catholic Church carried it on. And the British Empire expanded. It's not gone away. All right. I'm going to show you some photos in the next conference. I went to London with Joni and photographed Rome. I didn't find one saint in Rome in the city of London. I found Eros, goddess of sex. I found Baal on all the buildings. I found all the Greek and Roman architecture. I didn't find one statement of Jesus, only occult and Babylon, the British Empire. That's what it was founded on. Anyway, so there's Rome. Can you see now? It's gone right to Britain. Didn't get into Scotland, did it? Hit Adrian's Wall, but it's gone right through into Spain. There's Spain, Joni, to the left, of Portugal. But can you see it? It's gone further into Africa. Can you see it's gone down to Ethiopia? That's now Sudan. You know when you read Ethiopia in the Bible, it's not where it is now, it's Sudan. So there's Sudan. That's going right down. Sudan borders Uganda where we're going. So Rome went right down to the borders to Lake Victoria. Okay, and further west. But did you notice it went east and west? It didn't only expand east, it extended west, it went east as well. Further over. Okay. So we're living in the Iron Age now. People say, what age are we living in? Have we gone through the Bronze Age? We're still in the Iron Age, in case you didn't know. All right. Don't believe what the history book said. We're still in the Iron Age spiritually. The Roman Empire under the Caesars extended further west, conquered as far as Great Britain, Spain and Portugal, Western Africa. It was at its greatest under the Caesars in Trajan in 117 after death. So 117 years after Jesus, physical imperial Rome had reached its zenith. Every empire reaches its zenith and then wanes, doesn't it? Well, that's when it reached its zenith, 117. So listen, only a few years after John was killed on Patmos, 70 AD, you know, you're only talking about 47 years after Rome got to its fullness. Okay. And that's a map of them all. So you've got them all superimposed one on another. So when Jesus was born, or just after, 117 years after Jesus was born, that was the size of Babylon. Because you've got all the empires, the colours are superimposed. So the whole area that's coloured, now, that was almost the world then. It's nothing to what it is now. You'll be amazed how it's grown now. So, what happened when it declined? Well, when Imperial Rome declined, religious Rome took over. Did you know the popes became the Caesars, pontiffs? Pontiff Maximus. You know, all the names, I put it over there, Pontifex Maximus, it means greatest pontiff. So the popes only took over. Rome didn't disappear. Religious Rome took over, it carried on. Because Rome was always religious. The Caesars were always priests and gods. They were worshipped as gods, weren't they, the Caesars? Just like, isn't the Pope God's vicar on earth? God in the flesh. If he's God's vicar, he's antichrist. It's on his thing, isn't it? Vicarious Christus. In place of Christ, that's what it means. He's got it on the Pope's head. In place of Christ, he's God's vicar on the earth, God in the flesh. The great shepherd. Not the shepherd of Israel, the shepherd of Rome. The Pope's the shepherd of Rome. So, just in case you didn't know, the greatest pontiff, the name means highest. It was the high priest of the College of the Pontiffs in ancient Rome. The high priest. The Caesars were the high priests as well as dictators. They were the man of sin and the Antichrist in one person. And it was the most important position in the ancient Roman religion. See, it's not only political, Rome was religious. The most important, a distinctly religious office under the early Roman Republic. It gradually became politicised. Well, religion always does. Assemblies of God is now political. Elam is now political. Assemblies of God, Church of England is political. They start off right, the remnant, they end up political, don't they? Well, if you vote, it's political. If your church votes, it's got political. Sorry. Voting's political, isn't it? The body doesn't vote, my body doesn't vote. My head tells it what to do. Smack your children, love your wife, eat your dinner. My head rules. Good job my hand doesn't vote, isn't it? Should I touch his wife? I don't give it a choice. You do what I tell you. You saw that piece of wood. And the arm says, yeah, but my muscles are aching. I say, tough, you're going to get through it. My head rules my body. You don't give it a choice, do you? Fancy having voted for vote Christ out, don't we? Anyway. So, it began with Augustus. It was incorporated into the imperial office. The word pontifex later became a term used for Christian bishops. See, we took on the name, we took on Rome. Don't think that the Church of England isn't Rome. Don't think the Pentecostals are not Rome. They started off, they came out, but they've gone back in again, so they're back to Rome. Including the Bishop of Rome, and the title Pontifex Maximus was applied within the Roman Catholic Church to the Pope as its chief bishop. So the Catholic Church took over, and it's military and political, as well as religious. You know that, don't you? They will claim it. They wanted to take the world, they call Europe Christendom. Charlemagne named it Europe. Do you know that? Yeah. Charlemagne, after a Greek fable. We've get into that before. It's in it's in Brussels. It's in Leningrad. All over Europe, you've got the lady riding the beast, haven't you? The statue of it. That's Europa, the woman who rode the beast. Got raped by Zeus. The god came down and raped her. So the Empire of Rome's never died. The British Empire in Europe has continued to expand it to this day. If you're not sure and don't believe me, just wait. Either this conference or the net, I'll convince you. There's too much evidence, honestly. I'll show you photographs and different things. Okay. So, let's look at the religious empires, Joni. Have you got right? So, most people think that Islam and Buddhism are opposed to Christianity. Well, they are. Communism fights capitalism, but the same people finance them both. The Western nations finance communism because it's thesis, antithesis, synthesis, that's what they say. They get two opposites to fight each other, and in the end you get a synthesis. So now we're more communist than the communists were, did you know? The 10 tenets of the Communist Manifesto are practiced in Europe and we don't even know it. We don't even know it. We're more communist than ever we think, and we think we're free. Because now we've got a synthesis. That's how it works. Is it the Heiligen principle? Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. And in the end, both sides come together in one. The three religions will come together in one. Buddhism, Islam and Christianity. The world will all come together as one. They've done it so we fight each other at the moment until we can solve our differences and all become one nice happy family. It's all a plan. It's part of Babylon. Can you see that Christianity spread Babylon to the west and Islam and Buddhism spread it to the east? Can you see how between us, between religions of Babylon, we've doubled the area? Clever. Of course Satan's clever. Of course Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar's clever. But when you see it on a map, you can see, can't you? Islam's in the middle, and Christianity, we think we're spreading the word of God, and we start off doing it. Don't misunderstand me. There's martyrs and brilliant men gone, but as soon as we get big, the fowls of the air nest in the branches, and we've got back to Babylon, you see. Same with the others. So there's how it's covered at the moment. And then we get the European expansion. This is what Europe did in the name of Christ. Don't forget, we sent explorers out. The Catholic Church financed Columbus and sent explorers out because they wanted to Christianize the nations. Okay. And look what we've done. That's what religion's done. British, Dutch, French, Portuguese, Spanish, all Christian nations, so-called, all part of Babylon, all conquering for Jesus. South America, all Catholic, wasn't it? They still crucify people, don't they, in some parts of South America. Did you know that? That's how Catholic parts still are now. And between them, look what we conquered for Babylon and don't know it. We spread Christianity, the religion. Look at that. Not much of the world's left, is it? The parts that are white as snow, I suppose. You know, there's not many people living up there, and then down there is in the white bits. That's the European expansion. Can you see how Europe through Rome, because Rome was headed in Rome, wasn't it? And how the British Empire and the Roman Catholic Church, between us, have conquered all that for Babylon. But we could go further. What's the next one, Jody? All right, you may not believe this, but wait till the next conference. The British Empire was and still is the largest empire in world history. Did you know it's the largest empire that history has ever known? The British Empire is the biggest empire that's ever. And the biggest empire must be Babylon. Think about it. Because Babylon's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and more base. John Wilson, that was his pseudonym, he said, His Majesty's dominion on which the sun never sets. You've heard that. That the sun going round the earth 24 hours a day, the sun was shining on some of the area that we own, the British Empire. Because we owned Australia and Canada and Malaysia and Singapore. And what other big continents? India! Wow, massive India. And His Majesty's domain. Do you know the Queen is still the most powerful lady in the world? People think she's a puppet. That's how clever it is. She's no puppet. She's one of the richest ladies in the world, a trillionaire. I'll bring you some facts. The Queen still... Did you know the Crown still owns Canada? Why do they call it the Royal Mounted Police? They've got no royalty. Canada's got no royalty. Why is it royal? Why don't we design and print banknotes for different countries? Because we control the Crown, I'm talking about. The Crown controls the government still. We change from overt control to covert control. Now the Queen controls underneath. It's very clever. Very, very clever. Don't think she's a puppet. I'll bring you evidence. Don't think. She controls the families of Europe. The kings of Europe rule the world. And so we still have the biggest empire. Still rule from London. The world still rule from London. Financially. And finance rules the world. Anyway, let's... I don't want to go too much on that, because I want to bring evidence. So if you think that's too much, just leave it on the back burner till I bring you evidence. All right. This is now. So when you think of developed countries, you think Babylon's solid. When you think of underdeveloped countries, Babylon's not got hold. When you think of developing countries, they're being Babylonianized. Look at it. Look at the developing countries now. All of South America, and you talk about Panama, Nicaragua, Timbuktu, all the strait there, between it. Africa. Look how few of African nations now are a very pale colour. All those others are developing. I go to Africa quite a bit now. I can't. Do you know the Chinese are putting billions of dollars into Africa? You know what they're building? They're building roads, internet, infrastructure to get it Babylonians. Whenever you see a country building the infrastructure, the roads, big roads, motorways, communication systems, telephones, Babylon's coming. indoctrination. They've got the internet. Go to the slums of Africa. Go to the slums. They've got nothing. They've got nothing on the floor. They've got no furniture. But they've got a battered old television so they can be propagandized. So they can be Babylonianized. The government wants everyone in the world to have a computer, to be connected up to the network so they'll get the world propaganda. It's happening very, very quickly. Very few countries are undeveloped now. So the net's pretty big, isn't it, now? This will happen quick. This will happen very quick. Ready to take over the whole world. So the one world order for everyone on the planet to have a computer and be chipped. Has anyone got a modern credit card that you've had in the last 6 months? I've got my little chip in it, chip and pin, which is information about you. I've got a little sign like that. Do you know what that is? That's Wi-Fi. See those little things? That means I've got a transmitter, pass it round on my chip. RFID, radio frequency identification. Do you know they're sewing it in your clothes now? Do you know they can sew that radio transmitter into the material, into the thread that sews up the label on your clothes? And it transmits when you buy it, when you put it in the wash, when you put it in the dustbin. They can trace your clothes from the day you buy it till the day you bin it. Everything on the planet, they want every item, your glasses, your cufflinks, every single item, your makeup, they want this. And they can do it, they just print it on. A radio transmitter and my credit card. And every time you walk past somewhere that's got a receiver, it picks up the information. It's not a powerful transmitter. They can't pick up 3 miles away at the moment. But if I go past somewhere within, I don't know what it says, 100 yards, if I go past it, and the amount of cameras they've got and stuff, whenever you go past it, then it will pick up that information. You're being tracked. It's not just a chip and pin where you think, well, if I put it in, they know where I am. They know where you are without it. They want to know your every move. But isn't that amazing that you've got a radio transmitter in your credit card? So we'll share more of this in the last one, but I just thought I'd show you because this is just a few weeks ago I got it, and I couldn't believe it. I should have known because I know the sign for Wi-Fi. It's like the sound waves getting bigger as they go. All right. So, quickly, the story of Joseph's applicable, you know. The whole Bible's prophesying these end days. The story of Joseph is very applicable to the one world order. Did you know that? See, Joseph was one of these men who rose to prominence in Babylon. Don't you think it's strange that God has his man rising to prominence? He didn't go through politics. He was a jailbird. And God immediately transported him like Daniel. They didn't work their way up through the system. But God puts his man there. And he ruled Egypt for Pharaoh. Now, Pharaoh's a type of Satan. It's unbelievable. And listen what happened. I'm saying Egypt, it's the world, isn't it? It's part of Babylon. Do you know that Pharaoh took every man's cattle, land and possessions? He took advantage of the famine. Is that right? When the famine came, Pharaoh used it and he took over every man. And all the people of Egypt became slaves. Did you know that everyone in Egypt, the Egyptians, we're not talking about the Israelites, every Egyptian became a slave to Pharaoh because he took advantage of the famine. Advantage of the famine. Have you got that? Advantage of the famine? Because we're getting an engineered famine now, so they can take advantage, I'll show you. But remember that, advantage of the famine. Okay, Joni. Just to stop you that, is it all right with the sun behind here? Don't need to close the curtain? Okay, all right. Right, listen to this. I'm going to read the scripture, so just accept it for now. They were so deceived, they thanked Pharaoh for saving their lives when he made them slaves, and they thanked him for it. It's amazing how easy the masses can be deceived. To say, oh, thank you, Pharaoh, you've saved our lives, and he enslaved them. Let's read it. Next one, Joni. Did you know Pharaoh owned them? Do you know he charged VAT? The VAT in England is 20%, isn't it? He charged 20%. A fifth. Fifth is 20%, isn't it? So he charged them a fifth on all the increases of the seed that he'd given them. He took all the seed off them. They had nothing. So he said, well, I'll give you seed And he gave them seed, but he said, I want VAT on it. And he charged 20% on what he'd given them. He took them off the land. Listen to this, unbelievable, the story of Joseph. A perfect type's what happened. He took them off the land, this is the Industrial Revolution, to take people off the land into factories and forced education to program them. He took them all off the land and put them in cities. I'm going to read it in the Bible. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Taking people off the land, educating, programming. Okay. I believe millions, including Christians, will thank the man of sin. I'm still going to read the scripture, but for their deliverance from the woes of this world. The world will thank the one world dictator. They'll thank him for saving us from the problems that Babylon has instigated for the very purpose of supposedly delivering them from us, so we worship him. They make the situation, deliver us from it, and we all say, oh, thank you, and worship him. That's the plan. That's what happened with Joseph. It's all been written with no excuse not to know, Christians. It's in the Bible to educate us for the end time. That's why there's a famine, epidemic diseases, man-made viruses going about, banks collapsing at the present time. They gave me a free newspaper yesterday. What's the headlines? Mass strikes in Spain, Italy and Portugal. Why is there mass strikes? Because they're pulling the plug on them. They've already done it with Ireland. They've already done it with Greece. The pigs nations, PIIGS, Portugal, Italy, Ireland, Greece and Spain. They call them the pigs nations in the banking world. And they're pulling the plug, and that's why we've got unrest, civil unrest. The whole world's going to be in anarchy. They're going to collapse the economies of the whole world and we'll be desperate. And what will we do? Welcome the man of sin. He'll solve all our problems. He'll enslave us and we'll thank him for it. The church will thank him for it. They're already compromised, I promise you. Watch it, it's prophecy because I'm quoting the Bible. They'll thank him for it. And Christians will do the same. Only the remnant will stand. Very serious, this. The Catholic Church told the cardinals to vote for him. In fact, the Pope made a concordat with Hitler. I've got a book if you want to read it. Hitler's Pope, he made a concordat with them. Mussolini would not have got in power without the Catholic Church. So I've said about the VAT, it's funny that we're 20%. I'm just throwing it in that for a bit of fun, but it's... So the famine, listen to this now, the famine, as well as all that allowed Pharaoh to take over the whole of Egypt, it caused God's bloodline to seek help in Egypt. When the famine came, it was with God's people as well, and it caused them to go into Egypt for help. Is that right? And God used it because he wanted Joseph to be revealed to them. God will use it so Israel, the lost tribes, will need to seek in the famine, and that's when Jesus will reveal himself to him, because it's all prophesied. It's interesting, the famine, after 2 years, Joseph revealed himself. In other words, in the 3rd year. Resurrection comes on the 3rd day, the 3rd. And there was another 5 years. Read it, Genesis 45, 3-2. Have you got that? All right. But it actually says that Joseph said to them, you've had 2 years famine, now I've revealed myself to you on the 3rd year, and there's yet another 5 years left. He explained it, 7 years of the famine. So in the 3rd year, remember the 3rd year, Joseph revealed himself to his brethren after 2 years. Jesus will reveal himself. Okay. What's it say in Hosea? Which is a prophecy of Israel backslidden and restoration, isn't it? After 2 days, he'll revive us. He'll reveal himself to us. In the 3rd day, 3-7, he will raise us up and we shall live in his sight. We'll have seen him. So it's interesting, isn't it, in this 7-year period. Okay, work your own things out with that, but I'm just throwing a few pointers. Okay, the 3rd day. Go on, Jody. Right. The resurrection starts on the 3rd day. This sounds exactly like what's happening in Europe around the world with its engineered economic famine. People and nations are being enslaved as the money's withheld for the very purpose. It'll make a condition where the lost people of Israel are ready to seek help. Because that's where the plug's being pulled in Europe. I believe that's the lost tribes. The plug's being pulled, isn't it? Why is it being pulled in Europe? I believe it's significant. But anyway, many countries are now put in debt to the Babylon system, and others will follow. Ireland, Greece, Spain and Portugal, into the abyss of economic slavery, to powers behind the European community. More in the next conference, all right. We're still really looking at the Babylon in Daniel's day, but I've got to say it's applicable today. I don't just want to do a history lesson. And same as Joseph, it's very applicable. Okay, Jay. Now, it would be important to show the scripture about Joseph, because I've said he enslaved them. Have we got it, Jay? For these 2 years has a famine been in the land, and yet there are 5 years in which they shall be divided. So they've already had 2 years of famine. He started the 3rd year, okay. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's the 5 years, starts on the 3rd year. Verse 13, I'm going to read it, because I want you to know what I'm saying is exactly in the Bible, and it's a prophecy. And there were no bread in the land, for the famine was very sore. Verse 13. So that the land of Egypt and all the land of Canaan, where God's people were, okay, they hadn't conquered the land yet. The Canaanites owned it, but they were in the land of Canaan, fainted by reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan for the corn which they had brought, and Joseph brought the money to Pharaoh. Notice he got the money from Egypt and Canaan. And when money failed in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came to Joseph and said, "Give us bread. For why should we die in your presence, for the money fails?" The money's collapsing with no money for food. This is what's happened. That's why they're having riots in Greece and Portugal. We're on the breadline, we're starving. It's happening now. This story of Joseph is applicable 2012. I'm not prophesying of the future. I'm saying, can you not see it? Yeah. Don't read your newspapers. The banks are collapsing. There's riots. Think, Joseph, what's going to happen? You're getting enslaved. And Joseph said, "Give me your cattle." With no money, all right, I'll take your cattle. What goods have you got? And I'll give you for your cattle. I'll give you food for your cattle if your money fails. And they brought Joseph the cattle. And Joseph gave them bread in exchange for horses, for flocks, for cattle of the herds, for asses. And he fed them with the bread for the cattle all that year. And when the year was ended, they came and said, "We're not going to hide it from you. Our money's gone and we've no cattle left. You own all our cattle now. Why should we die?" Cities are where there's prostitution and vice and control and politics, not in the field. That's why the Industrial Revolution was a master plan of Satan. Take people off the land and into factories, mass production. Don't think, put the tails on sweetie mice all day. Put a nut on a wheel, shave the hairs off gooseberries all day long, and listen to some rock music while you're doing it. It'll take your mind off it. Listen to rock music. We'll put rock music on in the factory while you're doing a boring job. Just become a machine. Fancy a man sat at a computer watching things all day. That's inhuman. That's inhuman. We don't know. We're so used to it now. You go to the office and sit at a computer all day and fidget like a nutter with a mouse. God didn't intend you to do that, for God's sake, did he? No. All right, I sit at a computer a long time. Yeah, I can use it for good, but I know that's not what God intended. He intended me to be in the fresh air and hear the birds sing and smell the grass and the cow dung. That's what God intended, the natural smells. Goodness me, we can't even stand. We go on a farm, I can't stand the stink. You should love the smell of the farms. Shame on you. Goodness me. We're so sanitised and that we can't even, we see a chicken killed. We say, "Oh, that's terrible, makes me sick." You should be killing your own chickens. Then you'll know that something had to die for you to live. You've got to cut down the wheat and kill it for you to eat. You can't live without death. It's a principle in creation. Death brings life. And if you don't cut the wheat down, if you don't kill an animal, you'll die. You've got to rob and rape a tree of its fruit for you to live. Leave it naked. That's the cost. But we don't know. Where does milk come from? Astor. Not a cow, Astor. Where's the meat come from? Tesco's. No, somebody had to kill it, cut its throat, the blood ran out. Anyway, don't get carried away, Maurice. Well, a little bit. So as for the people, they removed them to the cities. Oh, dearie me. Verse 22. Only the land of the priests he didn't buy. Kept the religion. Ah, interesting. He bought every man, only the land of the priests he bought not. They had a portion assigned to them, and did eat the portion. Oh, look after the religious. It's all right. So if you become real religious, you might escape it. Take the mark, sign up for the Antichrist, you might escape it. But you won't buy and sell otherwise. And Jonah said to the people, behold, I bought you this day. I own you. I bought you and your land for Pharaoh. Here's so I don't want you to die. I want to control you. I want to own you, but I don't want you to die. So I'm a good man. I know there's a bad famine, and I know I own your land and your house and your car and your wife and your children. I own everything, but I'm a nice man, so I'll give you seed. I don't want you to die. Here's some seed. Just pay me 20% on your increase. And it shall come to pass in the increase, you shall give the fifth part, 20% to Pharaoh, and you can keep 4 parts for yourself. And you know what they said? Oh, thank you. Verse 25. You have saved our lives. Oh, deceived people. Christians will fall for it. They'll worship the Antichrist. If they vote for President Bush, they'll fall for Mr. Antichrist. If they said Tony Blair was a Christian and voted for him, and Christians did, they'll fall for him. He'll be a nice man. He'll solve the world's problems. He'll say he's a Christian to the Christians. He says the Muslim to the Muslims. Come on, let's get wise. And they said, you've saved us life. Let's find grace in your sight. Oh, my Lord. And we'll serve Satan. Pharaoh will serve Satan. He'd enslaved them, and they thanked them and said, thank you, you've saved our lives. We'll serve you. Now, I've read it. I want you to read it in the Bible, because it sounds too far-fetched, doesn't it? Yeah. So why do you think there's economic famine now? Why do you think they're pulling the plug to get people desperate? What's the answer? The whole world's collapsing. What's the answer? Mr. Antichrist, he's wonderful. He'll solve it. I'm not being facetious. It's the truth. Maybe I'm saying it in the wrong way, but it's the truth. Listen, look through the eyes of the Bible, not the newspaper. It's propaganda. Don't. When you read the news, check it with the Bible. When you read of economic collapse, when you read of famine, man-made diseases, don't believe the propaganda of history. It's been rewritten. Did you know? It's not the truth. History is not the truth. Churchill said it's the propaganda of the victors. The people who lost had no say in what happened. Well, my version of the story is I won because I'm great. I believe the world's nearly sick enough to demand a remedy. Right, I want to just finish with Daniel 2, verse 43. We looked at it. So this is the end of the statue. We're going to look at the statue more in a minute. Whereas thou saw iron and clay mixed with miry clay. So this is where we are now, is that right? We all believe we're past the Greeks, we're past the Romans, and we're down the legs, and we're now in the feet and toes. Surely you accept that we're at the bottom of the statue. So when you're at the bottom of the statue, you're ready for the end, is that right? It started with Nebuchadnezzar, it ends with the feet and toes. So if you believe now that we're in the toes, you must be in the end of the statue. It finishes. When it gets to the toes, it's the end. The stone comes and smashes. What, the head? Isn't it funny? When David killed Goliath, what did he go for? The head. This stone goes for the feet. Isn't it funny? And when it hits the feet, the whole statue disintegrates, showing that it's finished. This is the end now, so it hits the feet. But this is where we're in now, 2012. You saw the iron mixed with miry clay. What's that? Sons of God and daughters of men. They shall mingle themselves. This is the mingle seed with the seed of men. Who are they? Who are they? It comes from nowhere. It says they, the eyes of iron, and they shall mingle themselves. Who's they? It can't be men, because they are going to mingle themselves with the seed of men. So they can't be men. This is logic, okay? Let me say that again. It says they will mingle themselves with the seed of men. So to mingle, you've got to have two, haven't you? So if they are going to mingle with the seeds of men, who are they? I suggest it's these angelic beings. I believe these are demons who are going to invade the earth. I honestly do. It's a reference to the interbreeding of the angels with men. We're very close. Have you not seen all these occult films? Aliens coming down to Earth and looking like men and mating. Superman. He wouldn't get married, would he? Have you watched Superman series? You know, when it used to be on television before you got all these daft, you know, ones. Do you remember Superman? He always fancied Lois Lane, didn't he? Lois Lane. And she fancied him. But he would never have an intimate relationship with her.
He did in the end.
He did in the end. But why wouldn't he? Why couldn't he just have a relationship? I'll tell you why. Because he was an alien. He came from another planet. He was a mingled seed. Be careful when you watch the superheroes. Unless you watch it through the eyes of the Bible, you're being deceived. If you watch it and think, wow, what a wonderful story, and you don't see what they're preaching at you, you're deceived. Watch the Da Vinci Code if you want, but not to say, oh, that's terrible, they've got all the history wrong. If you don't see what they're preaching, you've missed the plot. If you don't read all these, don't watch films anymore for entertainment. God forgive you if you do. If you watch a film for entertainment, you're being brainwashed and deceived. You can only watch it through the eyes and say, wow. You'll be amazed what you'll see. They're preaching what they're doing. And Superman all those years ago from the 50s, he would never have an intimate relationship. He loved her, but no, I'm an alien. I've got another being in me. I've got a plan. I've got a... But in the end, he does. He mingles. All the superheroes. Watch it. Read between the lines. Jodie's been watching it again, the old 50s, haven't you? And I thought, what's she watching that nonsense for? Like you do, you know. She says, I've learnt so much. She says, I can't believe it. Even in the 50s, I see how they were preaching this. Unbelievable. Stop looking through your silly entertainment glasses. Throw them away and get the Holy Ghost on, and you'll be blown away. It'll be much more entertaining. That's the wrong word. Much more thrilling, exciting, seeing what they're preaching and what God's doing. If you need some help, I can tell you some films and tell you what to look for. It's important you know, but don't get hooked on the films, please. But you need to know what's happening. Well, the last days, if I ask the church, what will it be like in the last days? I'll tell you, it'll be like the days of the Acts of the Apostles. The gifts are coming back. We've got the Baptists, they brought water baptism, that was a new thing. Then the Pentecostals brought the Holy Ghost in, and now we've got the fivefold ministries in, and now we're back to the Acts of the Apostles. Bunker, Bilswater, Brickdust, Tribe, Trollops. It said it will be like the days of Noah, not like the days of the Acts of the Apostles. Is that what it said? Did it say like in the last days it'll be like the Acts of the Apostles? He said there'll be a great falling away, and it'll be like the days of Noah. What happened in the days of Noah? They were eating and drinking. Oh, marrying who? The mingled seed. In the days of Noah, that's why he destroyed the flood. It got so bad that angels were mating with men and there were giants. That's why God destroyed it. It wasn't just naughtiness and wickedness. There was a mingled seed. The bloodlines were getting mixed. Contaminated. The Nephilim, the giants, that was in the days of Noah. It says, as in the days of Noah. Well, if it's in the days of Noah, we're going to get it again. Is that right? This is not science fiction, it's science fact. And it said, they will mingle themselves with the seeds of men. So whoever you think they are, it's not men, is it? If you've got another explanation, that's all right. But to me, if you're not a man, you're an alien. If you think it's a demon or a fallen angel or whatever. But there's a mixture. That mingling, the mixture, they'll mix themselves. God never has mixture. He hates mixture. So there's something very demonic about that, isn't there? Think about it, all right. Don't jump on my bandwagon. I put there the whole Masonic symbolism. Well, don't study it. You don't need to study witchcraft. I need to know a little bit. It's not healthy to go into things, to be honest, for the normal man. But I can tell you, the obelisks and the domes, wherever you see an obelisk, you see a dome. You know, Capitol building in Washington, D.C., you've got the oval, the big dome, haven't you? What's alongside it? The obelisk. The obelisk is the phallus and the dome is the womb. They're prophesying. The seed mingling. The Vatican. The dome. What's they got outside the Vatican facing it? An obelisk. Isn't it amazing?
Yeah, what else?
Watch what they do. Obelisks are everywhere, and it's prophesying this mingling. That's what it's about at the top of the Mason. It's about the mingling of the sea. Believe me, if you don't, study it for yourself, although I don't think you should. Just accept what I say. Well, the stone smashes the feet. It doesn't hit the head, the whole statue falls. And what happens? So the empire's at its zenith when the feet are formed. You'd think it would grow up from the feet, and when it got to the head, it's the opposite way around. It starts with the head, and it comes to its zenith at the feet. Interesting, isn't it? The one world empire, or when the feet are formed, not when the head. The head's been formed 2,500 years ago. So after the fall of Babylon, a new iron kingdom will be set up. Jesus' kingdom is an iron kingdom. He'll rule with a rod of iron, not grace. It's not eternity, because there's no rod of iron in eternity. It's not paradise. It'll be like Rome. It's the new Roman Empire. Jesus will set the real Roman Empire, the rod of iron. And break in pieces all that oppose it. You can read the scriptures, Daniel 2:4, Revelation 19. All right, let's finish there.